Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we're bringing you a Kickstarter preview of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game, coming from Ubisoft and Archon Studios.
Yeah.
We actually have a full gameplay of this, a head-to-head two-player over on the main channel. I'm compelled to do more. It just depends on timeline and time frame and all that.
Absolutely.
But I can tell you this from the bat. This is another one of these videos where I have to make two caveats right off the front.
Yep.
One, I've had fun with this game.
Yeah.
And two, this and the gameplay are a sponsored video. So you'll see a little tag there in the YouTube description that's like,
Somewhere.
this contains paid advertising.
Yep.
And now let us get to advertising. This game, it's really lovely.
It is.
This has been
It is lovely.
a blast to explore. Now, there are some mechanical and complexities to this system that might make this not an intro-friendly game. But once you get beyond that and start being able to recognize the iconography and going through whatever scenario you're presented with, there's a lot of really cool stuff happening here with Heroes.
Yeah. I really like I'm not normally a lane battler system type of person, but it actually worked really, really well.
The integration of the deck building, lane battling, card powers, and tableau exploration,
the exploration
ties everything together really nicely. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is based off of a extremely popular video game IP that is popular over in like the Polish community, the England community.
Yeah, in Europe it's very popular. It used to be extremely popular in the United States too. I think the last time they did an update on it was like 2015 or something like that.
But it sold something like 4 million copies by the early 2000s.
Yeah. It was a huge
and is still insanely popular over there overseas. So a lot of the audience that are watching us are actually from across the ocean.
Yeah.
Good day to you. Nice to have you here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below because we do a ton of board game content over here on Quackalope. And we're excited to talk about this. Wes, let's set up the overall premise of what Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is and what it's doing. Because there's a lot of people that are going to see similarities coming from the video game IP over to the tabletop space.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've got lost in that collaboration. I think they've focused on it being a board game first.
Yep.
And yet also still holding true to the IP.
Exactly. One of the major things about the IP is that you're always exploring, you're uncovering new things, and that is the main focus here of this actual board is you're still exploring, you're flipping over tiles, you're looking for different things in your scenarios because this game does come with a scenario book. There's multiple ways to play. You can play head-to-head like we played, you can play one versus the AI, you can play single player by yourself, and you can play multiplayer against an AI as well. So there's lots of different options available to you there. The main thing is you're flipping over tiles. You're trying to find the different things that you're looking for. I believe you can alliances with an expansion
packs they're bringing. You're going to be able to play like 2v2, for instance.
Yep,
which is a cool scenario.
It is very cool. But yeah, you're flipping over tiles, you're looking for different buildings to try and find the different scenarios that you're playing. The particular one we did was the first one to control 5 mines in one time. Would trigger in-game. But because of that, those buildings that you're finding also are already occupied by NPCs. So you're fighting NPCs too in this lane battler system. And the stronger they get, and the different tiles that you flip over, the more powerful they are, the more upgraded they become. And while they don't have cards to play against you, trust me, your poor dice rolls can occasionally defeat yourself in those situations. But I think overall, they also allow you a situation where if your level is higher than the level you're fighting against, you don't have to fight the scrub battles anymore, which is really great.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of this feels similar to Mage Knight in some abstracted ways. The tile flipping with a ton of different pieces of iconography and potential regions that you can go to that each have their own unique effect based off the scenario you're playing, that feels similar.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the nature of a semi-cooperative, semi-combative game, and let me explain what that means in just a second, you're able to either choose to ignore your opponent, reveal the world for your opponent, which makes it semi-collaborative.
True.
Clean out some enemies, just open up the marketplace.
Yeah.
Or you're able to go head-to-head and rip them apart in any given scenario. So there's a constant threat of danger, a constant threat of war, and I think this is potentially more aggressive than Mage Knight typically has been in my play experience. But What also makes this stand away and makes this a little bit different is going to be some of the lane battling, is going to be some of the tactical combat that you have. Mm-hmm. You're going to have multiple tactical combat, like little skirmishes with the cards and the decks that you've built up throughout the course of play, which also resembles the video game in a lot of direct ways. Like when you actually get into the skirmish side of it, you're not just exploring, you're actually using the units that you've developed and built and sending them out to actually conquer your foes.
Correct.
And so this does that really well. Core mechanics. The core mechanics, the keywords that you're looking for. We've got dungeon crawl-esque exploration here on the front. Flipping tiles, revealing enemies, and figuring out what you're going up against. That's the nature of a hardcore scenario-based dungeon crawl. Mm-hmm. Pulling that down, we've got lane battling. The cards and the units and the armies that we have are going to be popping out into a terrain here. What you do on the main board and what you do with your player character is going to develop the different types of units you have, and you'll be using them to fight not only NPCs, but potentially your opponent. We're going to have asymmetric player characters and player powers. Every single character, unit, faction, and deck will make a choice between one of two different types of traits, might or magic. That will determine the type of character they are, and then you have special abilities, special cards that get mixed in based on your level, and special units that you upgrade depending on who you're playing as. So there's a varied way to approach this, and a varied way that starts to impact the units that you're actually fighting with. Mm-hmm. And then finally, it's sort of a race to win. In a way, which isn't finally, because you pointed at something that was more than finally, and I'll let you talk about it after me. It's kind of a race to win. Depending on the scenario you're playing, you're going to be able to drive endgame. There is sometimes a tag, like reach level 9 or hit scenario 9.
Like a timer.
The game ends. But for the most part, your most common scenario end conditions are going to be driven by the players themselves. Mm-hmm. And I like that in a game like this, because it lets you build, and the moment you see someone going for victory, you get to either counter or go for your own secure of that throne. Yep. And the final thing here, the biggest mechanic, probably one of the most interesting parts to me, is
deck building. I mean, you have relics that you can grab, you have spells that you can grab, you have different abilities that you can use. There's just so many different things that you can add quickly into your own system here, and they play off of each other incredibly well.
Now, Heroes 3 does something really smart with the deck building system here, because this is not one of those deck building games where you'll be cycling through your deck quickly and efficiently, unless you design it to be like that. In fact, in our 2.5 hour gameplay, I made it through my deck once.
Yep.
However, the reason for that is because every card and every upgrade and every stat buff you get, if it's taken by your main character, will be added directly into your hand.
So nice.
If it's taken by your secondary character, it gets added into your deck. And like I said, you can design a deck that allows you to cycle and shuffle quickly. Mm-hmm. However, the fact that I get to play with the stats that I just grabbed, whatever weapon that was, relic that was, magic spell I just learned, that's on my fingertips. So it makes the decisions I make on this board, as I'm deciding where and how to upgrade my deck, directly impact the fighting, the tableau, the progression.
Absolutely. And getting to grab different monsters right away, and they just automatically go into your deck. You're not cycling through, just everybody's there. They're available to play at any time. Yeah. That's super nice.
Now, just like the video game too, you're going to be able to play on 4 different difficulty levels.
Yes.
Normal, easy, normal, hard, and
stupid. I think it's not suicidal, but it's really close. I don't think we're allowed to say that S word.
Let's see what we have here. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6.
That's the ones against us. We have to go to the beginning. Impossible
is
level.
The keyword you're looking for.
Impossible.
And normal was difficult.
Normal was very difficult.
Let me be clear about that. Normal was a challenge.
Yes.
You have to build towards late game. You have to develop your deck. And depending on the length of scenario you're playing, you're probably going to build in a very specific or unique way. Mm-hmm. And we built differently.
Yeah, we did. It's so difficult to get into those cards. These 2 tiles here that touch between our 2 home locations, they were so strong and so powerful that we barely even played on them because it was so hard to win anything. Until we got more towards endgame, then we were able to accomplish those situations, which felt good.
One of the other cool things that I like about what I've experienced so far is the way that my characters start to level up. Every victory I have, every battle I have, actually pushes me up my own stat, which is giving me more powers throughout the course of the game, unlocking new abilities, allowing me to get more resources, but also, it's clearing the way.
It is clearing the way. It's clearing the way for us to fight against each other.
No.
And for me to steal your stuff.
It's clearing the way for something that West likes, but he wasn't picking up on my cue.
I apparently missed it.
This game gives you the opportunity to defeat anyone lower than you. Mm-hmm. if my level's 5...
Right. Then you can defeat 4s or lower.
How nice is that?
That's awesome.
You were just talking about it so much off camera.
I already talked about it once already anyway. We did talk about it. I did say it. But yes, that is fantastic. Because it really is frustrating when you know you're going to win anyway. What difference does it make? The way that the book puts it is that your opponents run away screaming in fear.
Yeah.
Because you're so powerful and strong. Just your aura of walking into the battle is incredible.
So it simplifies and cleans up and opens the door for some nice opportunities.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think people that are watching this are really just looking for a couple of board game people who have had a chance to play this outside of the company to say, hey, if you like Heroes of Might and Magic, if you're excited about Heroes 3, if you're interested as to whether or not this is a good board game, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, we had a good time with it. I'm looking forward to diving in. I can't wait to see the expansions. And I don't even know the video game that well.
Yeah.
This makes me intrigued into the video game in an interesting way. So I'm excited to dive into that as well. But this was good. This was a more accessible version of Mage Knight for me. It was fun. It was satisfying. I'd be readily willing to get this back down to the table. That being said, I would like some player aids.
Definitely need some player aids. Yep.
And the rulebook is still being refined.
Yeah.
So it is coming from a Polish company. I think getting a English guide to go through and nuance check all the keywords and terminology and stuff we're familiar with using.
And I think
I think the European and the Polish market is going to be a major backing source on this.
I also feel like some of that may be that they're trying to hold on to the language from the video game.
I think so.
I think there's some of that.
So there might be some keywords and stuff that maybe don't translate as well to us when it comes from a digital to a physical adaptation coming into the board game hobby space.
And this isn't a light game. I mean, there's the mechanics once you get them are not hard, but
there's a lot of choice here
to start. Yeah,
it's actually for an IP crossover. There's so much tactical play here that I didn't initially expect.
Me either.
It was really fun to kind of dive in and start exploring that. So we've been super positive on this. Let's give them with one or two reasons why they should maybe be cautious or think through it or the things that might be a game breaker for them. And then let's encourage them to go check out the campaign page link, as always, in the top of the video description, and our gameplay, because that's going to be your best option to see how the game is up and running and how it flows.
Yeah.
But no, I feel confident enough saying if you're a fan of Heroes of Might and Magic, you should be backing this. This is the type of video game IP I'd like to see more of.
Yeah.
That being said, with that glorious praise and the caveat that this is a paid video, let's talk about some of the context, some of the things that might make this wrong for players.
So, I would say that that one of the first things that would pop into my mind about maybe it not being 100% in that situation is if you're not a board gamer, if you haven't played dungeon crawls, if you haven't gotten into some of these types of things before,
sure,
this isn't an intro game into board games. This isn't a transition game.
It's not your first try.
No, this is a board game.
But if you love Heroes of Might and Magic,
you might be willing to learn how to do it.
Some of the mechanics of this might be familiar enough that you're willing to put in the time. But I think that's fair. You should expect the first 30 to 40 minutes to be learning the game.
Yep.
And then the first 2 to 2.5 hour gameplay to be learning the game.
Yeah.
Then you get to play.
Yeah.
West and I probably spent a solid 5 hours today just playing through, just learning, just rereading the rule book before we sat down and we were like, great, now let's have a real game.
Right.
And then after that, let's sit down in front of the camera and film.
Yeah. So this was an all-day affair, but it was great.
But it was a good time, and I feel totally comfortable to dive into any scenario from this point on. Along with that, they are going to be modeling this in a way that relies on you getting expansion packs in order to unlock things like the ability to play 4 players and stuff like that, which I think makes sense. I don't think everyone is going to want to go for some of those expansion packs.
Yeah.
And the game sitting at a solo to 3 player is a really solid point of it.
100%.
And I actually tip my hat to them for not trying to make this a 4 or 5 player game when the time in between turns would kind of make it a burden.
Yeah, 2 players is really good, honestly.
Yeah.
I could see 3 still being fun, but I think 2 was fantastic because even in the downtime there wasn't really that much because the other player got to play the NPC.
But if you're diving into this as a 4 player game, you will need to be buying into some of the expansions.
True.
So all in is probably natural.
Yeah.
And on top of that, a 4-player game will allow you to be collaborative in a really cool way, but it will lengthen the time between your play and everyone else's play. So your team will be going, but it won't always be you that's going to be as active. So the downtime might be a bit from session to session. Along with that, I'm really curious to see some of the expanded scenarios they're going to have.
Yeah.
I think some of the, like, go conquer a region are cool. I would like to see some variation on that as well. Like, I want to see some, like, this is just a skirmish game, or this is, you're not fighting at all. This is just a exploration game. And watch these tiles expand more, or watch us, like, level up our characters as fast as possible.
Sure.
Really using the win condition on all of these different mechanics as much as possible, along with some bosses. I want to see some showdowns.
You do?
The first person to conquer the Great Black Dragon or something like that
could be cool.
Wins the game. I think that seems cool.
Are we at what we could see, what we want to see more of in the
Sure,
Kickstarter?
I mean, I guess.
Because I liked that point. I want more monsters. I want more monsters. I want more things that I can fight with.
Now, every character has their own unique deck of monsters.
Yes, they do, which is fantastic.
But it is a limited deck.
It is a limited deck. You get like 3 or 4 of each style, 2 of the highest ones, which I think, again, it's great. Lots of fun parts in there. But I want to see
lots.
Hashtag lots. I do want to see more of those. I would love to see at least 2 or 3 more on each level, which would be really cool.
Yeah, the lane battling's really neat in this game.
It is.
It's not what you'd typically anticipate. It feels like a miniature skirmish game with the ability to actually upgrade your cards and flip them to their opposite side, or place cards over top of them that allow them to actually have 2 or 3 layers of hardcore defense. I thought this was done surprisingly well.
Yeah.
This little puzzle could be its own standalone game.
It could.
Without everything else included, and I would still be talking favorably about it.
I agree. I love the idea of double-sided cards like this, because most of the times when you upgrade a card, you literally get a new card and then you're messing with it and fiddling with it. This was really well done.
That's nice. I had a good time with this. Hopefully we've given you a good sense as to whether or not this game is going to be right for you, and what is exactly going on in it. That being said, we do have a full gameplay. You should go check that out. Whatever the case.
Whatever you do,
remember to do the important thing.
Get out and play some games.
We'll see you next time.